This is the GPL podcast, part of the Pull Tab Sports family.
Oh boy. Jupe making mistakes. I love it. And so I had to train for this marathon.
Make sure you stay awake for the game tomorrow, too.
Triple, hey, stomp the same ball. Let's go.
Stomp. There we go. So how was the flights in and out of Penn State last weekend?
Pretty good, actually. I was home by like, dude, I was home by like 10.
Now, here's Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 261. Good evening, Vigs. How are things with you? You were a little under the weather this past weekend, I know, but how are you feeling?
Well, you know, life got really busy leading up to the playoffs, but we've made it. We're here, playoff hockey. Not quite the NCAAs like we're all waiting for, but Big Ten tournament means we're close.
Well, if we're going to talk Big Ten tournament, let's bring in our Big Ten guy, Paul Caponigri, joining us again. Cappy, how's it going, man?
I mean, people must think I get paid a lot of money since you guys bring me on so often. No, I'm doing good. It's March. I mean, playoff time. Let's do it. You know, it's
one reason,
and the weather's getting warmer. It's like
one of the reasons we're having you on is that you're calling the games this weekend with Dan Kelly on FS2. Is that correct?
That is the correct rumor. I think I started the rumor, so
it's possible.
I better be right on that. Yeah,
pretty excited at the gig. So yeah, we're excited to have you.
Yeah, I mean, every time Minnesota. Well, this is kind of new, right? Because the last time Minnesota wasn't getting a bye was back when Bally's was still or FS North was still around, and that's who would pick up the games. Big Ten, I think the one time, you guys remember when me and Bosters were there, and you know the raucous crowd of 600, maybe 800. But yeah, so it's, you know, I think this is like maybe the second time where it's, you know, okay, we got Minnesota. We're obviously gonna, you know, air the Gophers game. So no, I'm excited to get to Mariucci. It's been a minute.
Well, we're always excited to have you, and I definitely remember that weekend you and Vosters came. That was
hey guys, clean sweep of Michigan.
Yeah, people forget that.
Yeah. Well,
they will always remember your photo, Jupe.
It was almost the beginning of Bob's, you know,
it was
turning it around and, you know, bringing everything back.
And, you know, this weekend, they've got a lot of tickets to sell. I've been getting quite a few emails, Vigs. It's still tough when it's spring break as well.
And with the state hockey tournament going on at Excel in Aldrich, that'll also draw some attention. But I think it'll be better than it was when there was that 500, 600 size crowd. You know, the students were already on spring break for last weekend, and they still came to the Michigan game. I think there's a little bit of rivalry now between Penn State and Minnesota. So I think it'll be a decent crowd, but not a great one.
Yeah. Let's hope so. Well, let's talk about this past weekend, Vigs. A straight up split with the Michigan. Great Friday night. Saturday night, they basically slept, and Michigan just took advantage of everything until the third period.
Yeah, it felt like for me on Friday, the power play maybe bailed out Minnesota for the weekend. And I don't know how great their power play looked, but it was very productive. So that's kind of been a thing with Minnesota this year. It's like just because of the caliber of player they're putting out there, they can be like a 25, 26% power play. I think if they were really clicking, they could be more of a 30% plus power play, but we really haven't seen that this year. So the keys for Minnesota's power play are gaining the zone, getting shots, and creating chaos and letting their talent take over. And that's what we saw on Friday against Michigan. And then on Saturday, when Minnesota gets disconnected, problems happen, and they're just not good enough to play that style. They need to find their identity and stick to it. And when they don't, against a good team, talented team like Michigan, Saturday happens.
And that's kind of the thing been this year, V's. We've been looking for consistency, and they have been consistently up and down almost the entire season.
Yeah, and that's the problem, I think, with this team, especially with as many young players. That's what you're going to get is inconsistency will be their consistent performance. And the one line that really shined out this last weekend was the veteran line of Nelson, Brodzinski, Nevers. They seem to never go too far low. And when they go high, like Nelson did this last weekend, number one star of the week, great weekend for him. They need that line to be productive, I think, to make a run.
Speaking of inconsistency, I'm sitting there getting ready for the game Friday night, and Cappy, you're on TV in between periods. You're like, did you see that call on Ohio State?
Everyone has now, right?
I finally got to see it. I don't know what's going on in this league, Cappy. We've been talking about it for a while here. I honestly think the Penn State player he was starting to get going.
He was going off the ice. He was going to change.
And he just ran into somebody, and he not only got a 5, he got kicked out for the game, didn't he, Cappy?
He did. Yeah. And for me, it has nothing to do with Ohio State, Penn State. It could have been an orange team against the green team. It is what happened and what was called it's just I don't understand how can and then you eject him. It's just, what are we looking at? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? We don't know. It's not being called the same way by every referee. So everyone's taking their own interpretation of the rule instead of trying to be the same, and then the one that was called later in the game was called a 5, which, that's a tough call too, because Halliday was falling, but his arms were up. So yeah, okay, you want to call a 5, but didn't eject him. Okay, I think that was right on it, but are you telling me that one was less egregious than the other one? And hey, look, I was a little mad, maybe a little more because I'm Ohio State. But
yeah.
Every person I've asked or watched the video, there was not one person, and none of them had anything, related to the game. They just watched the video, and not one person thought it was a 2-minute penalty, let alone a 5,
Correct.
Let alone a game ejection. So, and look,
it wasn't just that. It wasn't just that. It changed the entire game because Ohio State had just scored. It gets taken away, and that changed the whole.
And you get a 5-minute power play, and they scored 1. Buckeyes did come back and tie it shorthanded. Like I said, this is 6 versus 7. But what if this happens in the semifinals?
2 weeks
or
next
this
week?
weekend?
This weekend.
That's where I'm concerned, is that happening in a big game.
Yes.
And what are we doing? Again.
I did show that replay the next night to a former on-ice official who now does some off-ice stuff, and he was just scratching his head. He couldn't really figure it out, and he's like, because he wanted to see it. I'm like, and obviously, it's his guys, but he was a little speechless.
Generally, if it's a referee, kind of will just leave it. If he doesn't have anything to say, want to say anything what he really thinks,
and it's protecting his own. Yes.
Yeah. Hey, look, I don't know what because obviously it wasn't called, and on the replay, the back ref is literally looking right up the ice.
He was,
and it wasn't going to be called. I don't blame Guy Gadowski. Why? Hey, we just got scored on. We're on the road. Everyone's burning their timeouts now pretty willy-nilly. The one called on, I think I would have called maybe a penalty on Nelson in front of, I don't know, that was, on Casey that hit, maybe, but a 2-minute, but it wasn't a head contact one. It wasn't going to be reviewed, but he tried, and clearly it's a no, and your timeout's gone. It's the first period of the game. Hey, the coaches are going for it. Maybe he saw the one earlier. It's like, hey, this is worse.
What do you think, Biggs? It's frustrating.
Well, it's frustrating because I think the refs put in the review for these major penalties so that you don't kick somebody out of the game and change the game unless it's warranted.
Sure.
And I feel like the verbiage about that is reckless, dangerous, intentional.
Intentional for me is the biggest.
Yes.
If it's one of those three things and it's a high hit, it's a hit along the boards or a hit from behind, and you put those together, you're out of the game. But if the player changes their body position just before the hit, if it's unintentional contact, if it's not clear, if it's, contact to the head, you can't kick a guy out for that.
No.
And just seeing this get called wrong so often is baffling because there isn't the accountability for these guys. Maybe we'll see some of them not work the playoffs, but I don't really have a lot of confidence that that's going to happen either. You've got a bunch of series this weekend. You got to have somebody work it.
Right. I mean, how many refs are there? I mean, you're needing 6 this weekend,
There's 17 or 18
of orange stripes.
Correct.
Well, okay.
I just created a page on it this week because I was curious
who the 6 guys are this weekend, and if let's just say if a certain one from making that call, let's see, because I had heard certain things like I don't know, quote unquote, I don't know what he was looking at there.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say who said that, but it's someone that has to do with that world.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, that's we don't want to be sitting here talking about refereeing either. That's
we don't.
The last thing, but that changes games. And if it happens this weekend, or if it happens in the semifinal or the final, or NCAAs is a little different because it's not Big Ten referees completely, but the rule changed with the 5 to go into the misconduct to having both was the first game of the regional. 20 seconds into the game, their Hobie Baker finalist hits a guy from behind and is gone from the game for Michigan Tech against Duluth out in Loveland. And, it wasn't probably the only reason, but it was huge. Hobie Baker, top 10 finalist, Brian Halloran, hits a guy from behind. It wasn't wasn't intentional, but it was by the law penalty. But it wouldn't have been an ejection in the new rules, and it's a good new rule. I just don't think it's been used properly.
I know, like in the NHL, there's that site called Scouting the Refs, and they kind of track who the good officials are, who works what games, who advances the playoffs, who's in the Stanley Cup Finals, their kind of history. I don't know. Maybe we're going to have to create a page on GPL where we start tracking the refs, we track video reviews, and we see who's working the games, and we figure out who makes the right calls and who doesn't. Because it is starting to become part of this game where we just kind of shake our heads.
And I'm assuming these guys get graded, right? It's a little.
You would think so.
I'm sure it's not like crazy, NFL type grade, but I'm assuming they get graded because the top, cream rises to the top in anything, and the better referees for the year will do the bigger games. Like you're only going to need 4 next weekend. You're only going to need 2 the weekend after that.
Yeah.
So. And then you're only going to send 2 or 4 probably to regionals and all that. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that speaks.
I was looking because I was creating a page. I was trying to think, there's, Gopher Game Notes had a list. He has a list of the record against all these referees, and it was literally 17 or 18 referees. I was looking up myself. It was Colin Cronforst, he's done the last 2 Big Ten championship games. He did the weekend series here last weekend.
Yeah.
I got a little chance to talk with him after the game. Just more like the weird things that happen, because that's more fun. And he actually gave it.
Right.
I see you got a shot of me when I was talking with the coach. I'm like, you noticed that? He goes, yeah, I noticed those things. Because you got to realize these guys, they're hockey guys. They love the sport as probably more than most of the fans do, because they're willing to put in the time. And I was going back and looking at my photos, and even like Colin, he's been reffing since the beginning of the Big Ten. A couple others have as well. They've been doing it a while. He's
probably in the CCHA before that,
Yeah.
Colin's great. I think the less you notice a referee, the better they are generally.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Aaron does a pretty good job. I mean, it's I don't know a ton of them by name. A lot of them by look, to be honest. But like I said, the best is when we're not talking about them. We're talking about the games, and we're talking about the series coming up, and the regionals, and the NCAA champion. Like that's what
completely.
It's just you just don't want to worry about those calls. I don't know because it could why wouldn't Guy do that again this weekend? It worked.
It did.
And when you get a goal against, you're on the road, back against the wall, playoffs now for sure. As a coach, I would ask for it. What you lose your timeout, you only get one. It's not the basketball. Timeouts are. You only get the one. There's 80 times where you ice the puck and you love to call whatever. There's like several situations where you love to have a timeout. You don't have them. You only have one. So I don't know.
Viggs, we did kind of end up with a penalty situation at the end of the Saturday game with Michigan State. Controversial at the blue line. I couldn't really see anything there. But it kind of comes back to if Pitlick doesn't make that dumb decision near the boards at the end of the game, Minnesota's not even in that position to have to defend the entire, ended up being the entire overtime.
Yeah, it's not a great play, letting the emotions get ahead of you or away from
and
you.
Michigan almost won it with right at the horn too, because they just missed an open net when the puck came across. They would have won it in regulation, which would have been much better for their pairwise. So I kind of put Pitlick back in the doghouse for that.
In the tournament or not.
I think all the Gophers kind of have their ups and downs. I think the Pitlick more snuggered line is probably the moodiest line of the Gophers. Like they let their emotions get a hold of them sometimes and distracts from their, play and what makes them really good. So I think that's something for them to develop a little more maturity in how to handle that kind of swing of emotion. And they'll have opportunities here down the stretch, and we'll see if they can take care of it.
Oh, here, Ryan K. already question. What does Cappy think about these goaltender interference calls this year?
I don't. That one's so much harder because it's.
It is. That's true. I would agree with you.
A lot of gray areas in that. Man, I thought the one on Nelson I liked the call because there was no penalty. It was like it was an interference, but unintentional. But he did impede the goalie in the crease, so they did not. I don't even know if the puck ever went in. Did it ever go in?
It did go in.
It did go in.
Oh yeah,
but it wasn't in until after the interaction between the player. That is correct. Look, like I said, the contact was his rear end to the guy's head and neck, which was dangerous for the goalie. He didn't play. He played the rest of that period, but then didn't come back. Didn't dress the next game. Who knows if he's going to play this weekend? I mean, neck injuries and all that, but it's another one. That one's tougher, right? Well, they're both tough. It's just the obvious ones. I mean, man, I hate that we want to get the calls right, and you have all the stuff now to do it. You have, so many camera angles and the slow motions, but it does, make it, inches. Oh, was that in it? Was his foot in the crease? What did he touch him? It makes it to be easily scrutinized in so many different ways.
Well, Viggs, Nelson has basically been involved with almost every single one of these goals called back. For me, yeah, it kind of stinks, but it's showing he's, after 5 seasons, he's getting in there. He's mixing it up. Something we've probably wanted to see for a long time for somebody who's 6'4".
Yeah, the players all joke that Steve Miller tells everybody to stop at the net and go to the net. And they all joke. It's like, well, Jackson certainly hears that message from Steve. So obviously he's getting to the right spots. And, the line would probably have another 10 plus points if he wasn't doing that and getting called. So he's just got to find the line. We often talk about Jackson Nelson, kind of sometimes disappearing from play as he tries not to take too many penalties. But he's also a very important player for this team with his defensive positioning. And he's not a reckless player. He's a smart hockey player who knows how to support his line mates, knows how to be even keeled throughout the night. and he's just kind of finding where the line is, I think. And they need that out of him in that line.
It's definitely interesting. Well, one thing we need to do here, Viggs, is we need to talk about some of our sponsors. And one of them is Will Anderson Insurance, Viggs.
Yeah, close your eyes. Think of your insurance agent. Someone you used to know decades ago, friend of a friend. Now ask yourself, what has your insurance person done for you lately? Are they saving you money? Will they answer your call? Reach out to our sponsor, Will Anderson Insurance. He'll insure you the same as his own family, and he'll explain it to you so it makes sense. And while we can't promise he'll save you money, let's just say you should sure get a quote. Call 612-361-7283 or visit www.willandersonagency.com. And he's a hockey guy. I'm sure he'll take your questions on goaltender interference.
Former Gopher.
Yep, former Gopher. And remember, he's a hockey guy. No balls to drop because he's got pucks.
And then we've got Yoakum Realty, Viggs.
Yeah. If you're in the market to buy or sell a house, 'tis the season. Super Bowl Sunday is the official trigger point to list your home or start looking. We talked about this last week. No one's watching football on the weekends anymore. And while they might watch hockey, they want to look at houses. If you're thinking of going into the market, don't roll the dice on your biggest asset. Think twice and contact the twins, Sarah and Jody at Yoakum Real Estate. If they stand side by side, their wingspan is bigger than that other guy who buys too many billboards. You know what I'm talking about. Visit YoakumRealEstateGroup.com for more info.
And of course, we thank Yoakum and Will Anderson Insurance for sponsoring the GPL podcast. You know, you talk about football's over, Viggs. People aren't watching that anymore. People are watching us tonight. I show 320 people watching us live right now. It must be you, Cappy. It's got to be you, Cappy.
I mean, because they knew we were going to talk about refereeing and all that. I mean, hey, like that kind of stuff sometimes people want to hear. I get it. And others, you see bad, whatever you want to call it, bad calls. You want to kind of hear opinions because you want to give your own. Like, I want to yell through the TV sometimes, you know, and I get it. Like, it's a polarizing conversation, you know, and when I think when you posted it, on Twitter or X, whatever, you know, it got a lot of traction, I thought, because generally everyone saw the same thing. And like I said, I think they're all worried for their own teams on that.
Yes.
They didn't look at it as Ohio State, Penn State. They looked at it as college hockey. What if that's Gophers, Penn State this weekend? What if it's Gophers, Wisconsin in the semifinal if we get to that?
Mm-hmm.
That's what people are worried about. And it's sad we're talking about it, but if people want to hear our opinions, I'll be happy to do it.
But we do have a lot of other stuff going on this weekend, Viggs, in the Big Ten tournament. We've got Wisconsin playing Cappy's Ohio State Buckeyes. We've got Notre Dame visiting Yost and playing Michigan.
It's a big series.
Michigan, Notre Dame, I think is pretty interesting, Viggs. I think that could go to 3 easily.
Easily go 3, but I was impressed with Michigan from this last weekend.
Okay.
You know, they're a team that has a lot of talent. They don't always have the structure and discipline to go along with it. But when they start going, like McGroarty really impressed me. Brindley really impressed me. And when you got guys like that playing at a high level, it makes you dangerous against anybody. And especially Notre Dame, who I think this season hasn't had the structure that they traditionally do. Their goalie obviously was listening to the GPL podcast and played really well against the Gophers. They're going to need that if they're going to get by Michigan this next weekend, because he's going to be challenged time and time again. And it's not just going to be shots on net. It's going to be shots with movement, quick releases, one-timers, screens, the whole bit.
But Cappy, I think Michigan, they always seem to struggle with Notre Dame no matter what.
I mean, in the past, like those wins last year or last weekend were their first since in a while at home. Again, Notre Dame has had a great record at Yost Ice Arena. Mm-hmm. If you remember, just the year before last year, they Notre Dame beat them in overtime and got like home ice against Michigan State, but then lost to Michigan State. But it's up until this year they've struggled, or Michigan has struggled. Notre Dame as the one team, but man, if they get a tons of power, if they create power plays, I mean,
True.
that power play is insane. You guys talked about McGroarty and Brindley, but I think the key cog is Seamus Casey back there. He's just a wizard with the puck, and on his edges is skating. But the X factor is Ryan Bischel. I mean, goaltending can win series. It's that simple. And his number, I don't. Notre Dame they've not scoring goals, right? That's just not been their thing the last couple of years. Like, you imagine him as Michigan's goalie? I mean, whoa. Yeah, like you're all these like fantasy hockey type of things, but and I'm not knocking any of Michigan's goalies, but Ryan Bischel's save percentage is up near 930 the last 2 years, and he's got a chance. They got a chance with him in net. They lost, quite frankly, that 2 weeks ago. There was a couple goals where kind of you'd be like, that
soft
doesn't go in on Ryan Bischel. So that's the thing they're going, because Notre Dame scored 1 goal 2 weeks ago. They're not going to win any games. They score 1 goal in 2 games.
No.
So,
well, and I think that's because Notre Dame doesn't have their structure that they have historically had.
Yeah.
And they're exposing their goalie, and he's making the saves this year. And it could be a lot worse for them if they didn't have him back in net this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest thing for them with that is they've had a lot of transfers come in, and freshmen. So the combination of that is you've got some grad students or 4th, 5th year guys that have played a certain way for 3 or 4 years, and they come into Notre Dame and they're talented, but they're freshmen in terms of playing the Notre Dame Jeff Jackson way, and it's hard for guys that have played that way for 4 years to jump in and just pick it up right away. Notre Dame's at best when their older players have been there for that long, and they're like a machine. They know exactly where they need to be, and the other guys come in and follow you. Most young guys don't play a ton at Notre Dame because they've got to learn the Notre Dame way, and they brought in older players that are good, but they're not playing the, like you said, the structure that they learn, and it's like a slow process generally for them. And you see it usually work because they're a lot of guys that are freshmen and sophomore. You see almost no production from them, and then all of a sudden, junior, senior year, they become guys, and you're like, whoa, where did this come from? But it's happened over and over again there, and I think that's where the transfer portal almost hurts a little bit with Notre Dame. I think.
Well, and I was also looking at Notre Dame. They've lost so many guys decommitting to go other schools, and that's really impacted their pipeline. Notre Dame historically has recruited some young, highly talented kids at 16 and 17.
They've got some nice ones this year too, I think, though, with Danny Nelson and Knubel and Fisher back there. I think
but they're young. It's going to take time for them to learn that structure.
Usually of building your way up there. They have some veteran play. Landon Slaggert's had a great senior year after struggling. So, they can catch lightning in a bottle. You never know for sure, but Michigan is tough at home. So that'll be interesting.
And we got your Ohio State Buckeyes heading into the Kohl Center this weekend.
Yeah.
We kind of thought Ohio State was a little resurgent a couple weeks ago, and then it just didn't happen, Cappy.
Yeah. And I'm not going to blame it on injuries, but they're already not a big goal scoring team, and Dunlap and Thiesing were both out for them. That doesn't help. They gained some confidence. They took 3 out of 4 from Wisconsin and Michigan State. You're kind of like, whoa.
Exactly.
And they did it pretty well. They won 6-2 in East Lansing. So it's not like they won 3-2 and got outshot 55-12 or something. So yeah, last weekend was probably, kind of deflated them a little. But they should have a little confidence after sweeping Wisconsin. But yeah, they're going to the Kohl Center. That's going to be buzzing. First, home playoff series in a while. And the Buckeyes are shorthanded. See what happens. I obviously think it's going to be tough for them, and Wisconsin's probably going to get through pretty, we'll see.
What is it that Ohio State did so well in that series against Wisconsin? What allowed them to pull off 2 Ws?
I think it was more Wisconsin not doing things. Like, I couldn't believe, it was a 3-1 game, and man, Wisconsin was given – Ohio State could have won that game 7-1. They were just getting a ton of chances, and that's probably why, they struggle. They just don't have those elite finishing guys right this year. when they do get games like that. But Wisconsin was taking bad penalties, undisciplined penalties. I think I kept showing Mike Hastings on the bench, and I'm like, this guy's matured in 20 years, because if this was happening when I was playing for him, he wouldn't have looked so calm on the bench. I think he's just, in my personal opinion, I don't know this for fact, but he's just waiting until it's behind closed doors to, and still he still probably doesn't do it in the same way as he used to. But I think, he's probably really good now at keeping it out of the public eye, his unhappiness towards his play.
Well,
he did give it.
Molesky was telling us that, Hastings keeps everything very close to the vest. He can't see practices or anything like that. So,
yeah, he's learned over the years. He was giving it to the media afterwards, letting it be known that he was not happy with the way his team played. So,
sure.
Always interesting when the coach pulls that card out.
Yeah, well, and also I think, and he hasn't obviously had to use it many times, but how many times do you have that card to pull before it, falls on deaf ears? And so I think he's probably learned that over the years. Like, there's only so much yelling guys are going to take where they're going to actually listen. I guess I listened to it all the time back then.
Only so many times you can kick the garbage can, Viggs.
Yeah, Jacques Lemaire always used to say, I yell. Someday they're going to yell back.
Oh, yeah. Especially NHL players.
Yeah.
At some point, $1 million guys probably going to yell back at some point.
So you guys think it's sweep on both sides there, Viggs, for both Wisconsin and Notre Dame, and Michigan, I should say?
I could really see the Michigan Notre Dame game going to 3, just because of Bischel. I was not a believer, as people heard on the podcast before the Gopher series against Notre Dame, but that series kind of changed my mind and said, yeah, he's really legit this year and playing great. So he's probably going to get a vote or two for the Big Ten Goal of the Year, I think.
I think that, I guess there's a couple things with the Notre Dame. Like, I think Wisconsin is probably going to sweep. I'll say one of them in overtime, though. How about that? That's kind of like my hoping, show a little face for the Buckeyes. But two things: Notre Dame's at a bye week or coming off a bye week. You just don't know how they come out fresh. I thought Minnesota played a little slow at the start, but then were really good Friday. And then goaltending for Michigan. If it's Weston net, he's not played much. You don't really know what they have there, to be honest. So
2 grad students and a senior is what they've got.
That's where I'll hold out to wait. I mean, if Barczewski's playing, I'll lean towards a sweep. But if it's West, Notre Dame might be able to get a couple past him, and they don't need 4 to win. I think they need 3, maybe. And also penalties. I mean, they got to stay out of the box, and usually they're a pretty good, disciplined team.
All right, sounds fun to me.
That's as good as I.
Well, now we need to hear from our guy, Jake Middleton, for Duke Cannon.
Jake Middleton here, Director of Hair and Hygiene for the Minnesota Wild. How did I get this important role with the team, you ask? I'd like to think it was because of hard work, but the truth is, I run hot. Yep, I'm a sweater. In my role as Director of Hair and Hygiene, I'm sort of like a player coach. Let me pull out the grease board here. Well, it's not actually a grease board, because there is nothing dirty about Duke Cannon. How do I help the guys stay squeaky clean? Helpful reminders. It's simple. Tarps off, Duke Cannon on. Say it with me. Tarps off, Duke Cannon on. Tarps off, Duke Cannon on. Pick the scent that suits you. Sawtooth. Thick body wash. Extra thick. And my favorite, Midnight Swim. Tarps off, Duke Cannon on. Duke Cannon. Work harder, smell better.
Of course, we thank Duke Cannon for sponsoring the GPL podcast, and we love those products, don't we, Viggs? Definitely love
sure
those
do.
Products. And now we've got Cub Foods. I love myself some Cub Foods, Viggs.
Yeah, Cubs all aboard the Pull Tab Sports Wagon. Maybe you should be on Cubs bandwagon too. They sponsor the Wild on 7th Pod, sponsor Twins Homer Hankies, or on PJ Flex headset. They're one of us, and they support GPL podcasts. Visit your local Cub. They're all over the Twin Cities. If you need them, they're close. They got food, they got beverage, they got pickup, they got delivery, they got Cub.com. Check them out.
Of course, we thank Cub for being a sponsor as well. Love me those donut holes. I have a soft spot for the donut holes.
And they always have what you need. You go to these other stores, sometimes they run out of stuff. Cub, great inventory. Love it there.
All right, let's bring Cappy back in. Like he said, he's going to be calling the game this weekend with Dan Kelly on FS2. And for streaming, that's the Fox Sports app, folks. 6 o'clock Friday night, 3:30 Saturday afternoon, and if necessary, I believe it's 6 p.m. Sunday. Cappy.
Yeah, I feel like this is their kind of go-to time slots because it's the same ones we had last year in South Bend. So, hey, I'm just happy that there's an FS2, to get some of the, because you got, Big Ten is filled
Women's
with
basketball.
Women's basketball. You know what else? The Big Ten Wrestling Championships is Saturday.
That's huge.
Because, I asked this because I'm like, the Big Ten women on Saturday, they're done by like 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, they're not on the air. So I'm like, well, why can't, Big Ten Wrestling, it's the championship. It's not the quarterfinals and different. Obviously, they have 1 day or 2 days and that's it. Whereas our tournament, is spread over 3 weekends. So I'm just, it's you're thankful that you find a spot on FS2 to get these games on. Nationally too. You're not in, either if you have the sports package, you have FS2.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Viggs, how long do you think it will be? 3 weekends for the Big Ten tournament?
We'll see. Bob tries to tell us every year there's enough people that want to change it to a 2-weekend tournament. I think this is like 3 or 4 years in a row he said that, and it hasn't happened yet.
Viggs, what's his what would be his if it is 2 weekends, how would it be played? Does he ever told you?
He hasn't really said exactly what the format would be.
Okay.
Which I think makes it challenging because he's talked about maybe having a neutral site host it and have it rotate around.
I think now, 10 years ago, no. Now, I think it could be. Would it be 20,000? Would the Excel be full? No, but would there be 10,000 people there? Probably.
Maybe.
Ticket pricing. Well, the ticket pricing is the same as it would be as it is this weekend, right?
Well, it's tough because the Excel is a venue. If they don't cut you a break, it's like $50,000 a day. So if you're going to have a tournament where you have a practice day, game day, and that next day, it's at least $150,000 just that upfront cost.
Right.
And do they want to do that?
Well, it would be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, though, right? It'd be 2 days, semifinal, final. Yeah.
So
that's what I'm asking about ticket pricing. It's not on the Big Ten to set those prices, or are they basing it
they
on?
Do, but they had to negotiate with the venue.
Add a little more because of their paying the venue.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the venue wants to get a cut of the revenue too for an event like that too. So it gets pretty complicated, and that's why Excel hasn't been a part of the NCAA regionals the last 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough.
They
pulled out a bidding for the regionals.
It's too big of a place. I don't think they've ever had an NHL arena host a regional.
Oh yeah,
yeah, they've been at Excel a couple times.
Have they really?
They were at Denver too.
The regional. I know the Frozen Four was in the Pepsi Center.
It was the year before the Pepsi Center hosted their Frozen Four. They hosted regional because I remember that was the big 2007 Final Five. Minnesota, North Dakota go to overtime. Minnesota wins in overtime here. Yeah. They meet in the regional final a week later in overtime in front of a mostly empty Pepsi Center.
In North Dakota? North Dakota didn't travel there? Okay, well then if they're not traveling, I don't know what. That's where we're screwed.
And even the NCHC wants to go away from the neutral site view, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. NCHC tried to condense it as much as they could with the new teams coming in so they could still fit it in 2 weekends. So maybe that's something that Big Ten could get on board with too. I don't know.
The one that and this would cost obviously, is, you have on, home ices, and then you play then, or you have the semi, obviously you want 8 teams. That's the first thing I want. But, but you play the best of 3 weekend, and then the next weekend you'd play the semifinals Friday on campuses, and then the final on Sunday. It would cost more for travel for those 2 schools, or, you're paying for one more travel, I guess, because whoever wins the lower seed has got to travel to. So this year would be, say, Minnesota beats Wisconsin at the Kohl Center on Friday night. They would fly Saturday to East Lansing and play Sunday. If Michigan State were to win their semifinal, that's, I guess,
that would be a tough sell though for selling tickets though, wouldn't it? Because let's say semifinal next weekend, the 3 and 4 seeds both upset. So now the 3 seed hosts, that would be, let's say, Minnesota if it was this year. All of a sudden, 2 days later, you have to try to fill up a Mariucci.
Well, you're selling tickets. You're selling tickets that weekend for both games, and money goes back or whatever.
Yeah, I guess.
I think people are excited to go if they'd want to go. If Michigan, if somehow Minnesota got Michigan, because you guys 2 upsets, say it's the 4 that would maybe the top 4 seeds go right, but you guys beat Wisconsin, and Michigan beats Michigan State, you would host the Big Ten championship for the 3rd straight
against Michigan for the 3rd year in a row.
Right. And you don't think Mary should be packed for that on Sunday?
It would be, but it's also going to be a week of sales to be able to do that as well.
Why?
Not 2 days.
They'd be happy. Well, no. I don't know. I think there's a way you could sell the tickets, or
possibly, yeah.
I think people would be amped after a Friday night beating Wisconsin on the road. Oh, we get to host the championship game. I'm buying my ticket Saturday. I'm going to that game if I'm a good.
Poor Wisconsin. They've got too much going on at the Kohl Center, though. I mean, it's pushing the semifinal to Sunday, no matter what, because basketball has it through Saturday evening. The boys' basketball tournament there in Madison.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone wants to go to the Dane County Coliseum Vigs for hockey. It could be fun, but I don't think it's going to happen. So, if both teams do win this weekend,
the Madison junior team.
I'm sorry, what?
The Madison junior team, where they play. How small is that arena?
Is that the Dane County Coliseum? I think it's called something else now.
I don't know where the Capitals play. So
either way, I mean, it's the same that Ohio State would have. If Ohio State was going to be hosting a semifinal, that weekend is wrestling. And it's been, and it will be, their contract for I don't know how long. And they get tons of fit people there. I think, one year they played at Nationwide Arena and it worked out pretty well. And then one year they played at home on the Sunday. They played Penn State and they lost. So, it is what it is with those 2 schools with the multi-sports. That's why I'm begging for Ohio State to, and I mean, their new president is all in with the hockey. I mean, he was on air on Friday night.
Money. Get her done, Cappy.
They have the money. I mean, we all know that.
If you do that, I'm visiting. I'm going to come for the series.
You have a president now there that absolutely his favorite sport is hockey. He's been at every game almost. He's been on TV. He goes in the locker room with them. I'm telling you. So if it's ever going to happen, it's with this, and he's not the athletic director, but he's the president of the university, which is bigger.
That's big.
He played hockey at Navy, or Air Force. I think it was Navy.
Navy.
Sure. But if it's ever going to happen, it's under this guy. So I mean, it would just help in many ways. And then their women's team deserves it too, because they're an absolute, and they're going to be in town. That's another thing that's going on. This weekend. I'm not sure.
Final face-off.
Saturday, Sunday. I'm not sure, but
probably Friday, Saturday. Usually,
I'll try to sneak over there if I can to watch some of the Buckeye ladies play. I mean, that's they're a wagon. It's just unbelievable.
They are.
What Nadine is doing. I think she could be a men's coach in a heartbeat and turn programs around. She's just got it. I don't know what to say. If you can do it there,
Yes.
with that.
So Vigs, we've got Penn State coming back into Mariucci this weekend. Playoff series, best 2 out of 3. Penn State did not have a good trip here just a few weeks ago, getting shut out the entire weekend. I'm guessing we're going to see something different from Penn State this weekend.
I mean, we will probably see something different, but if Minnesota plays like they did in that series, I think they've got Penn State's number, because that weekend was one of the best performances I've seen by the Gophers, being above pucks, being connected, and being disciplined. And I think if this team's going to make a run, that's the blueprint for them to execute. And I thought coming out of that weekend, it's like, this team gets it. They're ready to go. And now we've seen a couple hiccups the last couple of weeks where they've gotten away from that, cheated, get stretched out, and they just can't play that way. So I feel like this is a good warm-up for the Gophers to get into playoff hockey and get going. And I think it's really important for them to stick to that recipe this weekend.
What do you think, Cappy? It's going to be fun to have you in town, by the way.
Yeah, it'll be nice. I mean, I love it. Playoffs is the best. I mean, because there's nothing like when you're playing for a game where your season ends the next day, possibly. And we're going to have that at some point here. If it's, Penn State on the down a game in the series, or, game 3 on Sunday. So I just love you kind of just get the all out attack, nothing to lose type mentality. Going back to that series, it was one of those ones where I'm watching it. I'm like, at no point did I feel like Minnesota didn't have control.
Mm-hmm.
The only time it got interesting was that 5-on-3 for almost 2 minutes, and Justin Close. That was when he made like 14 saves. The shots on goal thing looked. But Penn State does what they do. They shoot the puck, and then that one that created a ton of chances. Ryan Kerwin, I think, had like 10 shots. He's the one guy maybe that could be with his shot can be a difference maker for them. But man, they just looked totally in control that weekend. It's hard not to. I think Penn State will have a little more bite. They finally won a couple road games last weekend. Obviously, a whole different horse here coming down with the Gophers, but. If they can't get off to a good start, it's going to be really hard for them to get one here. I just think the way that Minnesota's schedule laid out for them is perfect. How they had a weekend off right before playoffs, won the series. And then if they were able to somehow win these 2, you're done playing back-to-back games, but you got enough games where you're not tired, but you're fresh, but you're not also rusty. That's just the way I look at I analyze that kind of crap in my head, and I'm like, it's laid out really nicely for them if they're somehow can just get through Penn State in 2 games, and I think they'll be motivated by that.
And Viggs, Cappy kind of talked about it. That 5-minute part of that game against Penn State was almost the key to the whole weekend. It was the end for Penn State. They couldn't get anything past. And Minnesota just kind of fed off it and just shut them down the rest of the weekend.
Well, I think one of the things that Justin Close does really well is preparing for the other team's power play. I asked him once about how he prepares for weekends. He's like, one of the number one things I do is we go over the other team's power play, what they like to do, how they score their goals, and really break that down so that when he sees that on the ice, he can read everything. And I think that's when his hockey IQ really starts to stand out, is making plays like that, because he's making those big saves, but he's not really making them look difficult. Mm-hmm. It's just because he knows what's coming, and that allows him to play fast and effective and calm. And, I hope for his sake, he doesn't have to go through that again, but if he does, it'll be entertaining for us.
It was definitely entertaining. The crowd actually loved that 5-minute kill. It was really strange because they had to kill 2 5-on-3s during that kill. It was pretty chaotic.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that it's rarely has to make that jaw-dropping save, because he's so silent and subtle with his movements, but he's generally always there. The one thing I'll say about Penn State, and their goaltending has been their bugaboo this year and overall, but Liam Soulier has had some really good playoff games. Both years, they upset Ohio State 2 years ago on the road. He had a couple good games there. Last year, he had a 55 save game against Ohio State, and their one win in that series. Shut out Michigan Tech in the regional, and then gave up. They had 39 saves in the overtime loss to Michigan. Giving up 2-1 in overtime. So he's got, I think, some confidence of playing well in a playoff scenario. And this is most likely his last kick at it. It's his 4th year, but this is the last year with the whole thing. But that's one thing. If he can, any series, if a goalie gets hot, right, it can kind of change the momentum and mentality of a team.
All right, I'm thinking 2-game sweep. I don't really see.
I'm shocked that that's.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
hey, we've been picking a lot of splits. I picked split last weekend.
I think I've been picking splits too. I don't know about you.
I didn't pick a sweep last week. I haven't picked a sweep in a while.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the video.
Let's go to the videotape.
All right, Viggs, what do you got? I'm guessing you're picking sweep.
I'm picking a sweep. I thought Minnesota played really well against Penn State the last time out. This team is saying all the right things, and they got to prove it on the ice. But I think they've got it figured out. I know Bob today said that this blue line core is finally on par with last year's. He was expecting them to be on par with last year's defensive core. It just took them a long way to get there. I still don't know if it's quite as good as it was last year.
It's not.
But it's pretty darn solid right now. And I think they're doing it in a little bit different way than last year's group did it. But they are pretty solid on their puck retrievals. I think the biggest thing is they need their forwards to stay with them, especially their centers. They've got to stay with them, stay below the dots, be connected with their D. I think it's easier to do that against Penn State than some other teams. So chance to get some momentum there.
Cappy?
I mean, don't I have to kind of go like Kirk Herbstreit on this? Because I'm calling the series, or no?
It's gonna be a split with an overtime win on Sunday.
18 overtimes in Game 3. I like to see this from Penn State. I like to see this from Minnesota. No, I mean, I think there's one team's better than the other on paper and in proof of the season. Playoffs, you never know what can happen, but
that is true.
It's setting up for Minnesota, but Aiden Fink, I think he'll play this weekend. He didn't play last weekend, but I honestly think maybe just being extra precaution because last weekend's games didn't mean anything. Got to have him, and I don't say he struggled of late, but he hasn't put up the points. Maybe he hasn't. I watched him; he's played well, but he hasn't produced the points. You make plays, and hey. You can't help if a guy doesn't finish your pass all the time, or or he doesn't put it back of the net. So the only other thing with goaltending and Suliera I just mentioned, if he gets hot, if he has a 55 save game, if you're the Gophers, like what are we supposed to do? Yes, you're supposed to score, but if a goalie plays well like that, you kind of got to shrug your shoulders. Sometimes you put 55 and score 1. So. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good series. I hope it goes 3 games because then I'm calling 3 games, and I love doing it. I mean,
heard that from the radio guys as well. They're always hoping for the 3-game series because they get paid by the game.
Well, that and then it's Game 3 like it did it last year with Notre Dame and Michigan State. It was awesome. Game 3, seasons were on the line for those 2 teams. A little different between Minnesota, Penn State. Minnesota will advance, but also you're looking at if Minnesota loses.
They're off for a long time.
2 weekends completely off. Penn State did that last year, and it didn't look rusty against Michigan Tech. But, yeah, you don't want that. So they're going to be highly motivated. And, yeah, I think they'll come out strong. And the crowd thing will be interesting because there is a lot going on in Minneapolis. You have the Big Ten basketball tournament down the way. You have the women's hockey right next door. You have the state tournament. And I just found out Michelle McMahon's here for pickleball. I just saw her; she's traveling, and I was like, "You're going to Minnesota?" She's like, "Minneapolis." I'm like, "Yeah." So pickleball's in town, I guess. So you just got a ton of stuff going on. So
does that mean Schlossman's in town? I mean, he's a big pickleball guy.
And spring break then too, right?
Correct.
So there's just, I'd love to see some good crowds. Dan Kelly, he predicted 8,000 a night. That's what he thinks, and I love
Really?
that. Obviously, that's what he thinks. So I don't think I'm being telling anything, or that was his prediction.
I don't know. Maybe we have to get him on for overtime. Let's send him a text. Let's get him on for overtime.
Dan's not awake. Maybe he is. I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, the tickets are priced right for this weekend. I think they're $10 a game, so that's a good value for a college hockey game.
And that's a Big Ten price ticket, right? I remember
there's a little bit of a negotiation there, but yeah.
Okay.
Big Ten's got to be on board with it.
I remember that happening the last couple of years because people were, Gopher tickets are pretty expensive in the regular season. If you want a premium seat, I think I feel like that should be very emphasized by, the university to get the people out there. Because how many times can you take your kids to a family of 5 can go for $50?
And the Penn State series a couple weeks ago was one of those special Black Friday deals earlier in the fall. And they sold more seats than any other series in the history of Mariucci Arena for that series.
Great. Yeah,
didn't have them all show up, but they put a lot of marketing behind it all the way back in the fall leagues.
Yep, which is good.
So
yeah, hopefully the people show up this weekend. Should be fun. Yeah. I will definitely be there Saturday, so looking forward to that.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on with us, Cappy.
Saturdays.
Yeah.
I have to. Although Dan probably could bring it home on his own. I'm not even going to lie on that.
Nighty night, Nittany Lions.
You hope.
True. Well, either way, Minnesota season won't end this weekend, no matter what. So they're pretty good. Even if they were to lose Vigs, they're not going to drop far enough.
Yeah, my last look at the pairwise says they're 100% in. Says they're locked into the top 10 right now. So
I mean, I think they'd have to run the table like sweep. Then they would want to see Wisconsin and want to see Michigan State because they're the higher ones.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's an outside chance of the 1 seed still, but
if they run it, yeah.
But you need help, and then obviously you're helping yourself because you're climbing over 2 of the teams that are right in front. Yeah, they'd need Denver's probably the other team. They need to slide out. But I don't know if that's really their biggest. I don't know. Maybe it is getting that 4th seed that would go to St. Louis would be, or I don't know, man. The East Coast thing with UMass, that chaos that could happen.
He likes playing. He wants to play at least. He'd rather be playing 2 games, like the weekend for the NCAA tournament. So,
sure,
if they were to get knocked out, like I said, like either this weekend or against Wisconsin. I mean, think about it. Wisconsin or Minnesota will
be out.
Going to be out. 2 top 10 teams. So.
Well, yeah. Also, think if Michigan State loses, bye week, then play 1 game. That hasn't happened to Minnesota, but you have the bye week, play 1 game, then you're off for a week.
It did happen to Minnesota, though, didn't it? Was that the year, Vigs, that they got knocked out of the tournament by .001? They didn't play for the longest time, and it ended up getting knocked out.
Yeah,
we know that whole story, but I don't know if it was because of that, the buys. But either way,
I think they knocked out early. It was all a cluster. So,
it always.
All right. Well, thanks for being on, Cappy. You ready for some overtime?
Yes, I have a time limit though. I do have to pack tonight.
He's got a plane to catch, folks.
You could do a Vossler special. You could show us what you're packing.
Yeah, that's not my style.
You need to do a whole pregame thing with it. This is I talked to the coaches.
I would literally need someone to do it for me. I can't do that kind of thing.
How do I use this thing?
My brain would explode. I would stress out from that, not everything else that you'd think I would stress out. It's not. I would stress out from something like that. And I like to keep my life nice and relaxed. Let's keep the stress down. So, nope, not happening.
I don't.
Nobody would care anyway. Who the hell wants to see me pack?
All right. Well, that is going to do it for this episode of the GPL podcast. Obviously, we thank Cappy for coming on the show this week. For those of you watching live, Stay tuned for some overtime for the rest of you. We'll catch you next week on the GPL podcast.
I heard it.
Oh, looks like a little dink.
That was a loud crack.
Loud crack.
That's the Dinky Town, isn't it? Duck
Yep.
beer.
So we got a little duck beer tonight. So original American lager. Cheers.
Cheers to
I gotta
you.
go fill my water bottle, but
Vince,
stay
what's
hydrated.
happening tonight? Well, there's 420 people watching us live right now.
I think people are watching us and they're watching the high school game, going back and forth.
Is that still
Keeping it
on?
convenient.
what's a normal number?
We usually max maybe 80.
Really?
80 to 100 live?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
And
People are
then
up.
sometimes we've had
I'm gonna
late,
take
you know,
12 I'm gonna take
we go off the
12%
air and
credit.
there's still 40 or 50 people watching.
Wow, 300. Eat
420.
that, Todd. Eat that, Todd. Eat that, Schloss. Eat that, Drew. Who? I know Tripper. Who we'll see this weekend too, but he's new, so I won't give him his heart. Mostly, eat it, Todd. No, I'm kidding.
Todd.
Well, because he's the only guy that's been on more than me, right? So
Correct.
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's see what it is now. Let's see if I can bring it up.
I mean, I might have tied him on that one, but you got him next week, so
Yeah, we do have him next week.
you're banking on that one, huh?
Yeah,
We just pit them against each other. It's a
I'd be
rivalry.
very shocked if it's not.
and then we've got Nick Angel the week after,
Oh, former Gopher.
and he's already getting us ready for some quite the recruiting and Gensel stories and everything.
Oh, okay. Like when he was, yeah. I'm sure there's some good.
You're now at
what are his
14.
years?
He's at 15.
I'm at
So
14, so he'll be at 16.
Yep, he'll be at 16.
Rat bastard. No. Shoot. When I'm trying to remember, I think Nick Angel was before Big Ten hockey, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's
But after when I played, I think.
well. What years did you play?
I graduated in 04.
Well, you're about to say you got to be the same age because he
Oh,
was
is
on
that-
those. He was on the 02 team.
Oh, he was on those? Okay.
Yeah.
We probably played against each other that one game.
That
Defenseman,
one.
right?
Correct.
Yeah. Maybe we played him against him in junior, too. I don't even know. Maybe he didn't play junior. I'm just.
He wasn't a big trash talker at the face-off circle like Patolny.
Nobody like him. He was, well, maybe no. Well, I don't know. That I can remember from juniors. He was. Yeah.
It was quite colorful Friday night when somebody from the Michigan team knocked down Nevers right in front of me with about a few minutes left. And they all just started jarring at each other. I mean, going back and forth and back and forth. And one of the Michigan players was like, "Yeah, you lost in the championship game." And I'm like, "You didn't
One of the
even
players?
make it." So it was, of course, a lot of things that, probably not safe
There's
to
more
be
bad
on.
chirping out there than there is good. Let's put it that way.
Well, eventually Coach Motzko put an end to it. He's like, time to.
Yeah. Well, there aren't that many guys that are that creative and in the quick moment. It's not easy. Like you either got to have something lined up or you just have to have that quick kind of wit, whatever you want to call it.
Some guys are hilarious. It's just like you said, they're quick whipped. They're just right on top of it.
Yeah. I didn't have a great chirp back, but the Patolny one was, I held my own. It wasn't terrible. I mean, and it's funny, like he's joking about Quinnipiac and that chirp doesn't hold a lot of water anymore in terms of where we're at now. Obviously, that was way long ago, but yeah, that really, especially last year, ouch. I didn't even think of that. That didn't even I didn't put 2 to 2 until I just thought about that.
Yeah, the NCAA hockey was putting out Twitter marketing on the Frozen Four coming up. Buy your tickets. And of course, they've got Quinnipiac scoring the goal to end last year. And people are just like, really, NCAA? The game's here. You're doing this to us?
Yeah. I mean, if you, like I said, if you took the names off or the jerseys off, that is just an incredible, insane way for a game to end like that. Like who gets a set play to go off of center ice to work in a national championship overtime game? Like that's like same odds almost as what was that 1 in 20,000, whatever. What was the odds in that one when they didn't make the tournament?
Yeah, about 1 in 20,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what Arizona State's.
Yeah, there's 64 possibilities, and one of them went, and it was not the likely scenario.
Right. And I'd argue that play working was even a less odd. The odds were probably higher or, bigger.
Yeah, it took 3 people to make a mistake on that play.
Crazy.
Not just one.
Yeah. I can't blame them, though, for putting that there just because it was the last play. But, yeah. Going to St. Paul.
They should have put the guys doing the karaoke because that was pretty funny at the Frozen Four last year. So I hope they do that again.
Oh, you mean on the screen? Like,
yeah.
I feel like they've done that almost every year now because it's because it's become such a hit. Yeah. They did it in Boston, I'm pretty sure too, the year before. They put the headphone, or they try. I like the one where they try to figure out what the guy's saying.
Yep, they did that in Tampa.
It's good. It shows personality, like the guys having a good time. It's good stuff for the fans. Really love that kind of stuff.
I hope they do it with a Minnesota theme this year, so they got to sing like Prince and Bob Dylan and like Soul Asylum or something.
I think they try to do that.
Some replacements, local stuff. I think that'd be funny.
Do that. I don't know, but I didn't know what Tampa really if they had any of that, but.
Are you coming to the Frozen Four?
Well, if one of our hopefully 4 teams that make the team make it, any of them are there. And I don't want to jinx who I'd be coming with because it's, I was told something that if it does happen, possibly who would be coming with me. But I don't want to say because I think it'll jinx it from happening. I'm a hockey guy. Like I have, jinxes and superstitions. So just going to leave it at that.
But weren't you down in Tampa already? Or you were down across the bay, but were you already visiting down there?
I mean, I was able to work out where I was able to go to my place down there. My sister was down with her son. So I got to, I went to work. I worked, then I went down there after, and then I was actually staying a week after I was playing in the over 40 men's hockey tournament in Tampa. So it kind of worked out. I spent a couple weeks. I went back again. Obviously, that time of year, right after the season, is the sweet spot for me to get out of. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I assume it's the same as that was the best February winter you ever had there. In terms of
yes, I mean we had one snowstorm and it melted really quick, and that was just a couple weeks ago. Otherwise,
and did you guys hit 70 degrees in February?
We did. Last weekend it was super windy, but
I can't.
I don't think so. Golf courses are opening. Golf courses are opening up this weekend, and I think they're going to be able to stay open.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't. Did you guys ever? We never had a long stretch of where there was snow on the ground to kind of kill the grass.
The grass is going to struggle this spring.
Is that how? So does the snow help it?
It protects it.
Kind of
insulates it.
But it's got to be cold for it to need to be insulated. It hasn't been that cold, so because what happens with
if that 1 week when it was really cold, though, that couldn't have been good.
Yeah. But that's only a week. I mean, I just think it's with the difference, not to get all nerdy with the weather, but I think it'll be interesting to see come April, May, if that was a good thing for the golf courses and just grass in general, because we've never seen it. So you don't really know.
Well, it's going to be the moisture levels because it was, not having that snow obviously just helps getting the moisture in the spring. Sure. And now it's been none of that. So,
right.
What I am told is if there is a layer of ice and no snow on top, that's bad.
Okay.
So, but if there's no ice, it's fine.
Jim Cantori tell you that? The Weather Channel guy?
Well, no, it's my greenskeeper guys at golf courses, because if
Okay.
there's ice, then the oxygen can't get to the roots of the grass and then it dies. And you have like a window of like 60 days where if it's more than that, like your grass is going to die and all that stuff. But
Okay.
we didn't have that this year. There's not a lot of frozen water anywhere. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah.
Well, one of the guys we used to play hockey with back in the mid 2000s is the head greenskeeper at what's the big golf course at Chaska? Hazeltine.
Hazeltine, yeah.
Hazeltine, where they had all the
Yeah, he's the main guy out there.
Wow. Yeah, he would probably be someone that could tell you all the. I mean, because that thing, what happens in the winter at these really beautiful courses when it's pummeled with snow and ice and all that? Like they
Chris
really
T,
can't do
that's
anything, right?
It was
What did they
Tritaba. How do you spell? Chris Tritaba. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he's the main guy out there at Hazeltine. Has been for a while.
That's pretty impressive, man. It's probably not an easy gig to get. It's like one of one if you're living in that area.
Ooh, that was a nice goal.
Avs?
No, we've got Orono and Matamidi are playing in the Class A
tournament
quarterfinal.
Yeah, they don't have high school hockey in Chicago. We know.
I mean, they have it, but I mean,
it's a little different.
Barbie's watching. I'm sure the damn rabbits and deer will eat up the tulips already coming up. Yeah, things are growing already. I mean, literally, we've got the tulips are coming up.
That's wild.
And that's
well, didn't they predict that this year? And they're actually getting it right because what's it the El Nino or something, where it was supposed to be a warmer up north and then like Florida,
but it might be a cooler summer, which I'm fine with.
I mean, sure, but and then Florida, my dad's been complaining all winter that it's not been very nice down there. I mean, in Florida standards.
Super El Nino. That's what it's been. Super one.
Well, look at me. I know my
Whereas like when we were in Tampa last year, it was about 10 degrees above normal. It's usually not in the 90s in spring. In fact, it's even in the middle of the summer, it's usually between 88 and 92. It was like that the entire time we were there. It was warm.
That's probably what cost the Gophers at that Hobie ceremony and that warm temperature, sitting out in the sun. That's what it was.
That Hobie ceremony was something else. Let me tell you, I was like just enough. I was like trying to find that little crease of shade on the side,
just dying out there.
But those players and parents were just getting roasted. And the sun was coming down, so it was right.
It was right on you. It was tough.
We blame Wally Shaver on that one. That's Wally's fault.
Oh man,
cost him the title.
I think they're doing it at Tom Reed's or something like that this year. Something about Tom Reed's. It might be.
Where was it in 2018?
I feel like they did it at the Science Museum, maybe.
Yeah, we didn't have any players, so we didn't even. And we won't this year, mostly. Obviously, I don't think there's anybody in the Hobie. Maybe the Richter. We might cover the Richter. Maybe I don't know. Kyle's. I don't know how he doesn't win it now. When is that final voting? It's got to be.
Is Kyle your vote for Big Ten Goalie of the Year?
Not if Pat Micheletti has anything to say about it, right, Pat? Pat, I love you, but.
It's past his bedtime. He's not watching anymore.
He's a very good goalie, and he's been great. But you can't. I mean, Kyle's like number one in almost every category of goalies that have played enough. I do not like CHN and how they like put some of those goalies up there that have played like 10 games.
Yeah.
Like the guy from Arizona State, great numbers, but he's only played like 10 games, 12 games. Mm-hmm. You got to play at least like the guy from Cornell. He's played enough now, and he's legit. Shane.
That's Woden's vote. Definitely.
What's that?
That's Woden's vote. Adam Woden.
Cornell guy.
Great. He was good last year. I had him in New Hampshire for the regionals, and he got up and beat Denver.
Are you working any regionals this year?
I'll be covering North Dakota. I got one team. Hey, I'll be in Sioux Falls, so I know I've got one team. I've been DVRing all their CBS network games so far. Could be the Gophers, number 2 seed, could slide in there. Or
Tough
Wisconsin.
ticket,
I think one of those 3 teams, if they all stay as number 2s, if it's like 5, 6, 7, one of them's going to North Dakota or Sioux Falls, excuse me. I would think. So
I see. These guys are telling us the score in the chat, and it's like way behind the stream here.
you got that nice. Is that 65 behind you or 55?
It's a 65.
Nice. You did it right down there. You did good.
I did. Here, let me. I can
make it
let me
wide.
see if I can.
Oh yeah. Oh, look at that.
There's just a little wall here, and it gets in the way, but not
Yeah.
from my point of view, just from the camera point of view.
That's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got the blue lighting in there.
Yeah, I've got the LED lighting up top. I change the colors every week.
Look at that.
I change the colors every week.
Movie theater.
It's kind of, I like it.
You go see Dune 2.
I saw the first one. I don't remember much of it.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard the second one is great. So I feel like I got to go see the first or watch the first
Let's
one.
go to purple and
Look at this magic.
pink. There we go.
Nice.
So yeah, that's what I
Somebody
do.
just-
I just
celebrating
but
that.
the thing is, I sold my house, so
Yeah.
I kind of had a little extra cash to build my office down here, which I spend all day here.
Do things that make you happy.
Yes. And like I said, I work down here.
Live by that.
Put in a couch down here. And,
That your nap couch.
thank you, Tom's. That's got to be Tom's.
Midway through the second period, it's 4-1 Gophers. You're snoozing after a couple cocktails.
Where's the swing?
Let's try to get back on track here.
Okay,
Cappy,
yeah.
what'd you think of our podcast with Wodan? What'd you think?
I never saw it.
I liked it. I just with him, like I loved that you asked him flat out, what is your, he doesn't have a solution. What's your solution? Every time it comes up, there's not a solution. And you don't have to have one, but it doesn't help your argument, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to a coach today about it, and he wants it all to go full steam to what Schloss recommended. And honestly, in my mind, I had never thought of it that way because I didn't know if he could do it over, like you're doing it over 2 weekends, but it makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I'm all for that. My always thought was that, they'll pick the top 4 teams and do that. And I was like, I don't like it because obviously, first team loses, then it's going to look ugly possibly for the regional final. But I think it works. And then do you move the Frozen Four a couple days, maybe? I don't know. Does that help TV? I think you could get Monday night because it's always against the Masters. So if you do Saturday, Monday, Saturday night, the Masters is usually done early enough. Maybe it's got to be on ESPN2, but you could have Monday night NCAA championship hockey game on ESPN regular that Monday night. Because I think it would be better to move it a couple days, just, so it's not so what if you're having games on that Sunday? You're going to have Thursday?
You could move the season up 1 week. These winter breaks are ridiculous. Basketball doesn't take those kind of breaks.
You can, but I think you want to do this. I think you want to move the season. I think you start later and end later. Get away from basketball.
I don't know. It's already long as it is.
Well, but if you start it later, it's not that long. I don't know. I mean, you want to get away from the high traffic areas if you're wanting to grow eyes on the game. I'm thinking in a total like
I don't know.
and growing the game. I'm not talking like a month. I'm talking if you move a week or two, you're the March Madness of basketball.
I still love being able to have that Saturday that Sunday to recover after a national championship. Whether if you're traveling or you're sobering up.
Hey, it's a personal choice, Jupe. You can just take that and make it a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So
You'll be very unapologetic of your work progress on that Tuesday. If you're celebrating a Gophers national championship. You know,
True.
and if not, you're just watching it on a Monday night. You got hockey to watch one more day. It's a little later in the year, and like you said, you get it on the Prime channel, and it's hockey. It's got its own stage that Monday night. You know, I think it'd be pretty cool. But I mean, that's, you know, it's got the first obstacle's got to get past first with the voting. I did think it was very positive, and I think I texted you guys this, was that he said that he talked to 5 coaches now in the that conference that were on board. That's huge.
Yeah, if you get Atlantic Hockey on board and you get some ECAC guys on board, you've got some gas to cook with. I mean,
yeah,
those are the ones I worry about. It sounds like CCHA leans away from campus sites, but if you can get 4 other leagues to support it,
yeah,
it's got traction.
I don't know why. I mean, I don't know. Why wouldn't they? I guess because they don't feel like they could ever host one.
Yeah, I think the conference right now is just not in a great state now that Hastings left Mankato. You know, they don't have a power that's going to be in the top 8 very often. But at the same point, you got to win games.
Right. You know,
I mean, Michigan Tech probably could have hosted a game once.
St. Thomas will be interesting to watch. Augustana, too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, new buildings. But I don't know why. I think I don't know. Look, you can't put yourself in other schools' shoes. You know, we're at big schools, or we went, you know, but I don't know. You've got just as good a chance of pulling an upset. I don't know.
And if they open up major junior
again, I love going on the road and playing in a hostile environment. I'd rather do that than I played in Albany against Wisconsin in my last college game, and there was maybe 1,000 people there in this 10,000 seat arena, and there was the same amount for the other game. Was Maine and Cornell? I think it was the first game. We were the second game, and it was garbage. Mm-hmm. The ice was bad. The ice is always bad at regionals because they repaint the ice at all these arenas too. You go to these other places, I don't think they're going to, I mean, maybe I guess they could paint the ice, but I think they want to show, hey, this is the Maine Black Bears against the Golden Gophers. Like, how awesome would that be? Like, yeah, tough game. But the Gophers could go in and win that, and it would feel good. And they're not going to go in there and lose and blame, oh, we lost because their crowd.
And Maine's getting renovations getting put into their rink. Like, they just got $170 million. They got $170 million from the Alford family to like put into the rink now.
Yeah.
So they're doing a $300 million project. Nice. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it was an awesome. That was my first. I think it was my first road game. No, second road series ever in my career, and it was Sean Walsh's return from he just canceled.
Really?
2000, the fall of 2000, and he got this huge ovation. And the fans there are just right on top of you, especially the students. And I'm just like, what did I get myself into here? Like Martin Korea's on the other team, and Nika Dimitrako, like NHL talent. I'm like, what am I doing out here? And it was just a great scene there and great venue. And then Lina was maybe my favorite road game. We ended up winning, which helps you enjoy it more. But I think I told a story about how they played the Michigan fight song before the game because they had just beaten us in football that day. So I loved it. I was like, it was just a great place to play. I would love if that was where my team was going to play. If I had to go on the road, like, oh, I go there. It was a great place, and they would love hosting it. And then ESPN's there, and so you're getting that environment on a national stage, and teams out west that never seen Cornell, now teams that don't travel east very often. The fans, maybe you guys would maybe go, right? Try to find a way to go to see that. And you'd be like, wow, this is amazing. Why would you not want to have that? I just think it looks better. It's just lots of opportunity to grow your school. Like David Carl has just been great, making a lot of great points with it. So we'll see. I hope, and I think they mentioned how I hope it doesn't get buried by the Canadian junior talk.
Yeah,
I don't know what happens in those meetings. I don't even think I'd want to go down to see what's going on because I'd probably get frustrated by like how, it seemed like there's a lot of things that they get discussed, but nothing ever comes out of them. a lot, minor tweaks and whatnot. But I think this is one that the opportunity is right there right now, and we'll see. Watch. We're gonna have 4 great regionals that are packed out, and which I hope.
But that happens by accident, and it happens because you have teams that are close to the venues who get like a home ice advantage.
Sure.
By it. It's not by fans traveling to some neutral site.
It is
like if we had like Vegas, Nashville, Tampa, and Boston as your 4 regionals and it worked, then I'm like, fine.
For sure.
Fine. If you can fill 4 NHL venues for your regionals and it works, it's fine. But when you have to do Sioux Falls or Fargo
or St. Louis, where it's
Providence
2,500 seat arena, which it's a nice brand new place with 2,500 seats only. Everyone else is going to have more than that hosts the regional. Cornell's about 4,000, I think, packed around in a horseshoe. I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens. That's all you can say.
And Schloss is even saying North Dakota has benefited from this neutral site thing the most because every time they bid, they get the bid.
Of course. Because there's so few that want it out west that'll do it.
And he's like, how weird would it have been last year if North Dakota made the tournament? Then Schloss saying they were just very close. They would have not lost in overtime.
They would have been a 4 seed.
They would have been a 4 seed, and they probably wouldn't have sent Minnesota there. He was thinking they would have sent Quinnipiac.
Yeah, Minnesota.
The national champion.
Minnesota would have went to, was Quinnipiac hosting? Because they were in Connecticut, I think. Weren't they? I don't remember. I think they were at Bridgeport. It was at Bridgeport. So I don't know. It might have been. Who knows? When those are all hosted at the same 5 venues out there, they rotate through teams.
Yeah.
It could be Fairfield or Bentley or one of those schools. But yeah, I mean, let's do it. And I love how he said, let's do 4 years of it.
Yeah.
If it's awful, then I'm all for going back. I'd rather have you're selling out all these places. I wish we had bigger venues. I'd rather have that problem than worried about having, 1,000 people. Like last year, ours worked out nicely, and they talked about that because BU and Cornell made the final, and BU probably had 80% of the fans in that. It was by 80-20, and there was probably 7,000 people in Manchester. But if it was Denver and Western Michigan, there would have been 500 people there. I bet.
I just think when the argument is we want a neutral site, we say that, but the sites aren't neutral. It's whoever's closest to that site that randomly gets put in there to help attendance and provide a great atmosphere. But like I was saying, if we could do Nashville, Vegas, Tampa, and Boston, you didn't care who was going there, that's a true neutral site experience. And that's not what this is.
Right. And Adam's saying, okay, I don't like that they're putting those teams like Providence in Providence. Well, I'm like, well, then it's going to look bad both ways. You're going to have no fans there, and you're not going to, it's like a double whammy kind of thing. So, hey, I'm all for conversation. I'm glad there's someone not fighting for it, but like arguing the other side enough so that you have to give your points. And I think it's growing more and more. And even he says like he's more and more open to it because people have brought good things to his attention. I think that's good to have that discussion. And it's probably, hey, coaches listen to those things. I bet a lot of coaches listen to that David Carl interview he had with him. That was a really good interview both ways because David was very good with all his points in that. And he's such a mild-mannered guy. Like he's an even keel guy. I just think a lot of coaches were, probably listened in on that, because it was another coach, a highly respected, very successful, young, but very successful young coach. And so I think it's I really hope it kind of clicks and happens this year.
Should be mandatory listening for all coaches headed to Naples. They have to listen to that podcast.
Listen on your flight down.
Yep.
30, 40 minutes of your time. I don't know if they have some of them probably don't even know how to find that.
I don't know. You might be on something there.
Coach Schaefer, I loved him. I got to talk to him twice last year. I played. Casey Jones was my assistant coach at Ohio State. They played together at Cornell. They're great friends. We always played Cornell in college because of those two had a relationship, and, you know, and I loved sitting and talking to him about hockey and whatnot. I would love to hear his thoughts now post like this part of it. Cause I think he was more thinking in the mind that I had where it was going to be 4 regionals at the top 4.
Yeah.
I think this one opens up coaches' eyes to it a little more and minds. Just my opinion. I don't know. I don't have a lot of, and the coaches that were against it, I think, you know, not the ones that were for it. So I think the best thing is that we keep talking about it.
Bingo.
Keep it live until April, you know, and try to
bring it up at the Frozen Four.
Oh, if I'm there,
I'm trying to get credentials whether Minnesota makes it or not. So,
oh yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you? It's in your backyard. I would.
True.
Yeah, if it was in Chicago and I didn't have it, and I'm going for sure. I did when you know, we almost had it. Was Notre Dame was in it, but it was the year before they entered the league. But you know, 2018 was great. I'd sign up for that again. 3 Big Ten teams in the final or in the Frozen Four. And that was the year, of course, of the Duluth. And can you imagine if all 4 were Big Ten? I don't know if that would have shaken out the same way.
It happened in the WCHA.
Did they get 4 teams, all 4 in the Frozen Four?
Yep.
Okay.
Minnesota,
Did
CC,
Denver, was it 22 or 20?
and North Dakota. No, it was
Denver?
Yeah, it was mid 2000.
Was it a Denver Frozen Four win? 04, 05?
Might have been 2005.
There you go. That was at Ohio State. That was in Columbus. It
was the Columbus one.
That the shot. CC, Denver,
Nodak, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Minnesota played North Dakota, and that one CC and Denver on the other side. Denver won.
Denver beat North Dakota, right?
To win their second in a row. Yeah, see, this is why we do it live, folks.
There you go.
People are paying attention.
Eric Johnson playing for the Gophers, number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
I believe at that time. I was out in Atlantic City playing hockey. The last year of the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies. I still have that jersey. It's actually a pretty sweet. Played where they had the Miss America pageant. Boardwalk Hall. I mean, if you're going to play in that league, it's not the worst place to play. You had real restaurants to go to, and wasn't a big gambler, but you know,
you didn't sit down against Johnny Chan at the tables and try to get him like in rounders.
Nice try, John. No.
Well, it's the funny thing is, they kind of like for the couple of years after that, they didn't put WCHA schools head to head. Obviously, 1-4 or 2-3, but a lot of them were in the same regionals to eventually play. So you didn't end up getting 4 teams making it. It's I think they just
too many
made it a little
teams
tougher.
making it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the ideal is a regional has 4 teams from 4 conferences. That's always a nice thing to do. But
this year's going to be, you're going to have unless Quinnipiac doesn't win, you're going to have 14 spots from 3 conferences. Or 13 spots. Because Quinnipiac, it would be like three conferences with ones, and then 13 from the 3 other. Yeah,
I was told they're being
Hockey East could get 6. I think now it's not, because unless UNH were somehow to, win theirs, or Northeastern or one of those, I just don't, I don't see that happening. But yeah,
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see if Michigan and CC can get in, because they're it's so tight.
CC's up at 11. They'd have to go on and they got I think they have a home and home with Denver. Obviously, win one of those, almost a lock. If they even get,
and they split with Minnesota here. So
yeah, they look good. Other than Mberko, didn't look good against the Gophers. He got,
and he's arguably their best player, So, last weekend killed St. Cloud and Western. All of a sudden, they're out right now, or they're almost out. Western is out, and they were top 10 2 weeks ago.
St. Cloud I think they kind of ruined their season at the beginning of the year. I mean, they were really bad at the beginning. I mean, that can add up over a season, right, Viggs?
Well,
I mean, they say
especially with your non-conference schedule.
Yeah.
So if you have a bad non-conference schedule, it really kills you this time of year. But I mean, anyone from 10 to 16 can still make it. I think like they're all pretty close.
Gophers and St. Cloud play this year. I get confused because, like, the rotation with who's playing. Duluth did, but Michigan went in there and won and tied. I think that's helping them right now. And that they're 13-14. That could come down to the difference there. I would love to see, my dream matchup would be Michigan, North Dakota, 1-4 in Sioux Falls. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Because, I mean, it would be a great game, too. Like the offense and the high pace. Very similar when Michigan and Minnesota play.
They were supposed to go to the same regional in Fargo a couple of years ago until Michigan got COVID.
Right. Yeah. I just think too, like, Michigan loves. Oh, we're the 4 seed. Yeah, we're not. We're gonna. They're not gonna go in there and be like, oh, this is North Dakota. They would go in there thinking we should win this game, or
cheer for the refs.
Cheer for the refs. I mean, yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Cheer for a meteor. Yeah, that's always popular.
No, NCAA tournament's so much fun. I'm very lucky now. I'm very grateful to be going back for a third time. I love it. Like, it's awesome. And every year I'm always kind of. Hey,
do you like the day off? Do you like the day off now?
Do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind it as in terms of, like, for me, it's great because you get a whole day to you get to sit down with coaches again and different players, and then you have, like, reaction from a game, and then you also have, you just have more time to prep, and then you get to watch the other games too that whole day. So you get to see every game, really, unless pretty much, because I don't know how it's going to work. I think they're going to overlap because our game, the first year, we had like a 4-hour break because it was like our game, then the other region's game, then our game. And then I remember I went back to my hotel in Loveland because it was across the parking lot. I went back for 2 hours and was watching the game and just kind of to get away. I didn't want to sit at the rink for 3 hours and the hotel was so close. Last year we did back to back. I think we didn't have, or, it was an hour between.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
That. So I don't know if that's happening. I feel like we have the times are locked in where it's back to back this year. And we're the later games because I think we're lined up with Springfield on Friday, Thursday, Saturday is Springfield and Sioux Falls, and then I think Friday, Sunday is Providence,
Maryland Heights,
in St. Louis, Maryland.
Yeah,
I think that's locked in. So, yeah, I love it. No, I was saying I like if you need someone for the Frozen 4 studio or anything, because I think this year it's only Colby and Bouchigras doing the final.
Yep.
So, and I think that'll be good. I mean, those guys work really well together. I don't know if they'll sit together or if
Colby goes down on the benches.
Colby likes being on the ice, and he's a big guy, so he can still see everything. So I don't know if they'll do it that way or have him up there together. Because I see that in the NHL all the time. Bosters and Pang now, and then in Chicago will be together sometimes, and then Panger sometimes will be between the benches. I don't know. Who knows how.
And Panger's always between the benches when he's on like TNT or whatever.
Right. Is that because he can see under everybody?
He can see under everybody.
You can see under. You got to be either over like Colby or under like Panger. Yeah.
6 foot is no good. Be like 5'7" or so, or 6'3". So I'm somewhere in the middle. So I don't know, but
you'll be up top.
Yeah, I joke about that just because that's the crown. That's the cream. That's top of the mountain. So we'll see in the future. Do a good enough job. Who knows? But I think I'm with Jason Ross. He's making his debut. So he's taking.
He's good. I like Jason. Calls a good game.
Yeah, he's taking for. God, why am I blanking now? He's gonna kill me. The guy who I worked with last year is the only change. Because he's now the lead play-by-play for the Boston Celtics. Sorry, buddy. And he's from Minnesota, actually.
It's not Clay. Clay will get us. Usually, Clay Matvick gets one of them.
Everything is exactly the same as last year, except for my partner because he's not available, and it's Jason taking it in his first. It'll be
Jason does a
Drew
good job.
Carter?
I like
Drew
I
Carter.
Like
Drew, sorry, Drew, man. I know you're not watching this or anything, but if it comes up somehow,
It's gonna get to him.
I think we'll clip this and tweet him.
Yeah,
Drew's cool because he does football and he works with another Buckeye. He does with Dustin Fox, who was a cornerback during my time. We didn't know each other, but he was a cornerback on the national championship Buckeye team in 03. So we were kind of at the same time. So I was gonna joke with him like, hey, you're surrounded by old man Buckeyes from early 2000s and you're broadcasting, but. He's a stud. I mean, he's Boston Celtics. I mean,
as a student, how fun was the football national championship for you? I mean, that's got to be a huge highlight.
Yeah, it was awesome. We were actually. It was funny. They changed a game around our game. So we were playing in Pittsburgh. We were playing at Mellon Arena in Pittsburgh because we had RJ Umberger, Nate. We had 4 Pittsburgh guys, and obviously RJ was a very big. First round draft pick, first Pittsburgh guy. He's from that Lemieux kind of like Pittsburgh becoming a hockey town. And so we were playing there on, it was scheduled, in advance. And they were having Robert Morris play a club game. At that time, they were still club, play at like 3:00. And then our game, we were playing Princeton. So it was like, club game and then, Division I game. But then when the national championship came out, it was going to be at 8:00 or whatever. They moved our game to 2:00. And then we stayed at the hotel. They got us a banquet room with a huge screen TV. And so the whole team and whoever was there with family were in that room the whole night. And then, some of us, I was well over 21. I was like, I want to have a cocktail and celebrate this. The one cool thing they did, they brought in 1 case of beer and gave us all a celebratory, Miller Lite or something to, celebrate the big, that was a big upset too. Miami was major favorite in that game. That was Maurice Claret days. And
yeah.
Florida was loaded with dudes. They just NFL guys all over the place. So
I'm trying to think of it was Jeremy Shockey and
Johnson was the wide receiver. McGahee was the running back.
Yeah,
Frank Gore. I think McGahee got hurt in that game. He had a bad injury. We had Maurice Claret was his freshman that one year. He was great. Our defense was loaded. We had a bunch of NFL guys on defense, but Craig Krenzel was our quarterback, but he was pre-med. He's not what you think of with Ohio State quarterbacks now. He was more of he was a game managing kind of, we won some ugly games that year, but it was cool. It was just to be in school. And to be in school for one was pretty sweet because 2014 was awesome too. But when you're in school,
it's a little different. Get back to campus, and campus is just a buzz.
And I knew a few players just from being in class, but crazy. But yeah, and it happens during spring break. That's going on during because I think it was January 1st or back then it was still New Year's Day, so we had a week or so until school got back in to get. But yeah, the buzz was and I got to go to some games that year. We played a couple Friday Sunday series at home because of football, and I went to those games with my family. It was awesome. They came in, got to go see a couple games that year of the play, the run. So Ohio State hockey got to be we did pretty good and had some good seasons, won a championship, but it's nothing like that first time on campus, that first Saturday on campus. I knew Big Ten and Ohio State was big. But that first Saturday in September, when where we had a morning run, it was early in the preseason, and that 9 a.m. and just people everywhere, tailgates and the buzz. And I'm just like, what is going on here? Like that first experience is just, you're like, wow, this is insane. So yeah, it was the best of both worlds with the hockey, and then with this, and the football environment was awesome.
All right, well, you got to get ready to travel, don't you?
Yeah, I was gonna give 11:30 time off, so if you want to keep me for 15 more,
Okay.
So if there's anything more you want to talk about, or any curious questions you had, Jonathan Duran just scored a goal. Good for him. He was a very hyped player as a young guy. Some trades today. How about those NHL trades?
Yeah, Casey Middlestat going to.
Man, if I'm Bowen Byram, I'm kind of sad. Although now they've got a really nice decor, like no excuses in Buffalo. Like you got Owen Power, Rasmus Dahlin, and Bowen Byram. Whew.
And Ryan Johnson. Don't forget Ryan Johnson.
And I love him with those guys because he is like,
he's a compliment.
Put him with one of those guys, as like the security blanket.
Mm-hmm.
But they need to start winning in Buffalo. You got too many high draft picks. It's like you got to start making a playoff run.
Well, and it makes sense for them for their cap. They've got so much tied up in their other centers. Casey's kind of a.
He's about to get paid. Is that something or no?
Well, his contract will be up, and he'll move from RFA to.
He's UFA.
He's got one more year, I think, and then he'll be a UFA.
And he's finally doing things where he's going to get
paid more.
That's gonna be interesting. I don't know if they're gonna be able to afford him.
Yeah, I don't think
in a year.
Well, I don't think the Avs will when he hits UFA, but they kind of had to move him because I don't think they can afford him.
2-year-old stud.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're not that happy with him. I don't know. I haven't watched Colorado enough.
Got to manage the cap there, so it's important.
Yeah, one more year in Minnesota with that.
Oh God,
Albatross, right? And Zach Parise scoring goals and setting most. Was it most goals now by a North Dakota thing or no? Or was that
probably
something with the past Taves for post points or something in some way? I can't remember what it was, but he scored 2 goals. I think it was actually against Chicago, and he passed Taves for something. I think most points by a North Dakota player, maybe.
It's possible.
Maybe,
could be. It's hard to believe that he passed Taves, but Taves kind of had his career cut short. So,
and Parise, Taves never was a huge. I don't never think he was a point per game ever. He was just 60-point guy, which 60, 70 did all the other things. Let Kane score, but hey, Parise's had a really great career, but that contract is just. One more year, right?
Yep, one more. We'll see what's going to happen. They've been
you got to pay
fun
Brock.
to watch Faber, but
you got to pay Brock.
Yeah, he's going to get 8x8, I think.
Do you think they got to give him that much this early? I feel like these teams are not like who's giving away first round draft picks that easily, because like obviously you match RFA stuff. I think
the idea is that you're buying out the free agency years down the line, and it sounds like if the cap goes up, if you can give them it now, it sets you up for success later.
Do you want my solution to the salary cap thing? Change it. There needs to be some. It can't be this hard cap anymore. It's 2024. No other league has a hard salary cap like this.
Are you ready for a luxury tax?
That their contracts aren't guaranteed. The NBA has luxury taxes and the bird rule and this. The NHL could easily do a couple things. One, you give teams, you reward teams for drafting and keeping their own players. So you have a guy for over 10 years. The longer you have them, the less his cap number counts against it. You can go from like 90, go to 90%, then to 80%. So like guys like until last year, Patrick Kane in Chicago, and soon to be in Connor McDavid and those guys that you get rewarded for drafting those guys. And then the other one is having a luxury tax of say $5 million. if you go $5 million over the cap, you got to give 5 over to the league. Teams will do that. Toronto will do it in a heart. The high end teams will do that in a heartbeat, right? But then it creates more money for the league. And $5 million, is that going to really, make one team win it every year for the next 10 years? No, it's going to keep it still. These are just ideas, but there needs to be some movement there.
Yeah.
Because now you're getting all these teams to fake it. And I don't want to say fake injuries, but almost hope for an injury where it's like, oh, he's going to be ready about a week before the playoffs, but we're not going to have him play until the playoffs.
If I know one thing about the NHL, this will come into play once the Wild get out of their cap penalties from Prezi Suter. It's guaranteed. Like, this is totally coming in 2 years.
Well,
and
right,
the Wild are just going to be like, what the hell?
Well, right, because those would be like certain. Now, it wouldn't be, they didn't draft Parise and Suter, but if you're with a team at, like, baseball has that like 10-5 rule or something where you can't be traded after you've been with a team for so long, something like that. But I just think it rewards teams for drafting and bringing players up and rewards you for good things. And then it keeps players with the same team longer instead of moving around as much. I don't know.
Maybe you should get a cap reduction if you sign players from your state. So if the Wild sign just all Minnesotans, they all count like half of the cap. No?
No.
They all want to play there. They love it.
Unless you're
Eric
Johnson.
It's the right reasons. Got to make sure it's the right reasons.
Eric Johnson hates the Wild fans more than anyone.
Does he?
Oh, gosh.
Well, they've been brutal to him in person and on social media, so
right.
I can see why.
And, generally that's going to make
exactly.
You make your own bed with that stuff, but
that's weird. That era, like Okposo, Kessel, Johnson, all kind of not really
still doing it. By the
they're
way,
all still doing it, but they're all kind of anti-Minnesota for the most part.
So
it's kind of a weird time.
Well, Okposo, at least he would come back and like play in the beauty league and whatnot.
Yeah,
he'd be back here.
You got a lot of guys that
Kessel, Johnson, no.
Home. Vanek is a perfect example, right? Leopold, you would know more of the guys maybe from the past that played some in the NHL. A lot of them that's their home.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bogosian, he re-signed with the Wild because he summers on Lake Minnetonka.
Sure.
So he's like, this is a perfect fit for me. I get ice time here. I like everybody. Sure. I live here during the summer. Why not live here year round?
Yeah. That's too bad because I think there's some guys, when close your ears, Minnesota, Wisconsin guys do that. Like Pavelski trains at Wisconsin, skates on LeBron. I would love to have that. If you love, you grew up in that town, you get to go back, raise your family there, and then you still get to play and train and do all that. I mean, I would think that would be ideal. Obviously, everyone's got their different reasons, and maybe their wives are from different areas or whatever, but that'd be pretty cool,
I mean, when I was younger, I used to go down to the Bloomington Ice Garden in the summer, and I'd see professional players they're just hanging out. I think is that thing, every guy's getting together, and that kind of led to, like, years later to like the beauty league. Like,
that's an awesome thing.
We're having fun anyway. Yeah. Let's do stuff for charity and
sure.
That's and they get younger kids too. I mean, some of the college kids are playing it as well.
Sure.
And
they probably feel like they're like, you almost like gotta make the cut to get. I mean, you don't have that anywhere else. You're searching to have that quality of ice in the summer, or that type of player.
Yeah.
You're playing once a week or whatever. It's, guys don't want to overdo it. You want to taper your summer, but to go play some games, you're playing against maybe your old buddies or guys that are 10 years behind you in college. I'm jealous of I'm jealous of a lot of things like Minnesota has, like having that high school hockey be that big. What was the game where the upset happened in Minnetonka? Was it?
Minnetonka beat by Chan. Yeah.
And people are saying they have like 10 Division I players, and it's maybe one of the best teams in the last 20 years. And to see the crowd and all that, like, We didn't have anything like that. When you got to walk into school the next day and you're like the football team. You watch Varsity Blues and the girls are bringing you a Rice Krispie treat of you. You're like, that probably happens, or that I imagine that probably happens and all that. That was so cool.
And it's actually, they've had to go to the smaller arenas for these section finals. I mean, they used to do section finals at the Met Center where the North Stars played.
Wow.
Or they'd have them at Mariucci. And they don't like to go Mariucci anymore because that was a big thing. They might get back there, but
it might go back.
They might go
breaking
back.
news. Breaking news. They might go back.
The ice is normal now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's closer to normal, but I've been to Mariucci for high school games where they do like two section finals on a Saturday afternoon. They don't do them Saturday anymore, but
yeah,
there was 12,000 people in the building.
Yeah.
And
incredible. I do like those
crazy.
Smaller ones where the intimate little venues. Did I see the glass broke at some game?
Yeah, two sheets of glass.
Oh,
broke.
there goes the balloons.
Yeah, but in one play.
Like in one play.
Where was that at?
Rochester, right?
I think it might have been.
I mean, obviously not that happening, but the kids are right, like students are right there. The players are jumping up on the glass, like.
It was funny because I heard that they told the rink people not to let people be in the first two rows of the rink because they were worried about them pounding on the glass. So instead, they're pounding on the top of the glass, and that's why it broke. Because if you put glass pressure on the top, it's like
So
worse.
Shocking. It went bad for them when they try to make people not have fun.
Yeah,
I heard it was quite the delay, like half hour, 45 minutes.
So that game wasn't the end of the game.
No, it was the middle of the game.
Middle of the game.
In the middle of the game. Oh no.
Yeah.
I thought it was like the end of the game celebration.
No.
Yeah.
It was like a 2-0 game or 1-0 game, and the glass breaks. And then it's like a 20-minute delay. And I was listening to the Youth Hockey Hub podcast. They're like, they're calling like the next rink because they don't have the right size glass. And it's like, well, that's 20 minutes away.
That looked like seamless glass too.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and like the kids, when they were winning in overtime, they're literally skating over, jumping on the boards, going with the fans. I'm wondering why more glass doesn't break.
Well, because like he said, it wasn't all on the top; it was evenly spread out.
Right.
No, but that's just awesome. Very cool. Where now is everything at the Excel this weekend?
The consolation games will be at Aldrich, which is the
Is that
rink where.
Is that a newer place?
No, it's an old arena. It's where Hill Murray plays most of their home games.
I feel like they used to.
They always have sections games.
Didn't they used to use the Target Center?
They used the Target Center for a couple seasons when Civic Center was being demolished and the XL Energy Center was being built.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the 90s.
Late 90s, because some reason we were there when I was playing in Omaha. I think we might have been playing Twin Cities.
Yeah.
USHL team back then. When
The Balkans?
70 people showed up for those games. That was the one weird thing about Minnesota hockey is Twin Cities junior team failed miserably. Like it, I get it, kind of, but like it was played at like a tiny rink where even if a ton of people wanted to come, they couldn't. I was like, I thought Minnesota was big on hockey.
And Carlson's right here. They used to use Mariucci a lot for the consolation games.
We went. I remember walking into Mariucci and there was a game going on. We were in our Omaha track suits. We wanted to check it out. It was a consolation game, and there's maybe 1,000 people there.
Going back to the old days, until they went to two different, Class A, AA, or whatever, until they broke up the tournament. It used to be every single game was at the Civic Center or at the Met Center before that.
Right.
Even the consolation games, everything was on TV. Everything was at the same arena. But they obviously can't do that when you've got twice the amount of games like they do now for the two different A and AA. So
right. Yeah. No. Cool stuff.
And I rarely get to see the semifinal evening or the final because we're always at Mariucci those things.
It'll be on the
TV.
screen.
It's
It'll be
on
on
the
the
TVs,
screens. Yeah.
but it's like it's hard to pay attention when you got another game going on in front of you. So,
And this
I think
weekend
I-
will be great because the Gophers will play in the afternoon, and you'll
Early,
be able to watch
right?
the AA
that's right.
game that night. So
Yeah.
that'll be great.
Pretty game. I'm loving that it's early.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
I love
We'll
the
probably have
Yeah.
Jess Myers watching the War Road game on his laptop during the Gopher game, but if they get there.
I don't know. I think Jess might go down to the Civic Center, the Extra. If War Road makes it,
They should. They've
He's
got
got a
pretty good
job to do on the Rink Live, though.
yeah, but he
Yeah.
covers all sports. I mean, because it's not just the Gophers. So,
Right.
all right, you guys are yawning. I'm yawning. I'm ready to go to bed.
Yeah, I'm looking to my left at my empty suitcase.
team.
Get your best suit. Make
I've
sure you're
got a
looking
plan.
good.
No suits, like jacket and pants. My comfortable Lululemon.
Tennis shoes.
Mate, probably. It's all about comfort. We're not on. Nobody's seeing me below my
Nope.
chest. So
Pack a wedge and a putter. You'll be good.
right, like. Oh, one thing we're not. This is the first time I've gone. We're not staying on campus. Like staying downtown. I don't know if that has anything to do with all the stuff going on, but
How
not
about
staying.
with the basketball?
It could be the final face-off. I mean, they've got 4 teams.
Yeah.
That's a lot of
Sure.
places to put 3 teams.
And this was decided last Monday.
I don't know. Thinking maybe post game Friday night,
I
Beeks.
think everything was figured out the week before this. You know, they didn't have to wait. They kind of knew
Yeah.
things. So it was last Monday when it was like, hey, we're doing this. So book your travel. And then I saw I wasn't staying campus. So which I'm not a huge basketball fan at all, but this Caitlin Clark thing is kind of cool. I wouldn't mind to sneak in and see like a half, or Sunday. I might Sunday if Iowa's playing Ohio State for the championship, it's like a 1 o'clocker, and if we are having a third game at like 6, I'm probably gonna try to peek.
You
my
could
way.
maybe get over there after the game on Saturday.
No, the timing so they play. I was gonna play at like 5 around the same time as our game Friday, and then they would be in the first semifinal. They'd be in the second semifinal because there are 2 seeds, so 1 seed gets the early game, and that would be at like 3 or 4.
I see.
Sunday would be the only day that it would work out. If so, and then if there's not a game 3 in ours, I'm probably having to leave Sunday afternoon. So anyway, a lot of stuff. That's awesome for Minneapolis to have going on at once.
Big
Pretty
busy weekend.
Cool stuff. So and the weather.
All right,
Yes.
call it a night.
11:30.
Bye. There's 4. This can't be right. It says 489 people watching. That cannot be right.
Hey, I've got some like gadget going to make it look.
Yeah,
I'm so smart like that. I know how to make it.
pumping our numbers up.
All right.
Twist the numbers on that.
Say goodnight, everyone.
I'm not
Bye.